Just above Kozhikode, India, Air India Express Boeing 737 is approaching a challenging tabletop runway. Monsoon season is in full swing, bringing heavy rain and slippery runways. As they attempt to land, the plane's ground proximity warning system sounds an alert,
Glide slope.
warning the crew they are getting dangerously close to the ground. The captain tries to correct the plane's path and prepares for landing. In a desperate attempt to land, half of the runway is nearly consumed as it lands on a slippery runway. To worsen their situation, a strong tailwind is pushing the plane forward. Can they bring this airplane to a halt within the runway? The lives of 184 passengers and 6 crew members depend on these two pilots. Almost a decade earlier, an Air India Boeing 737 crashed at a similar airport in the neighboring state. Will lessons from the past be applied, or will the mistakes that led to the tragedy be repeated? This is the electrifying story of Air India Express Flight 1344.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
As the world battles the COVID-19 pandemic, India faced a challenge: how to bring back its stranded citizens from around the globe. The Indian government launched a bold plan called the Vande Bharat Mission, aiming to repatriate millions of Indians stuck abroad. This daring operation utilized Air India's planes, including those from its budget airline Air India Express. One such flight was Air India Express 1344, scheduled for the 7th of August. Its mission is to transport stranded citizens from Dubai to the southern Indian city of Kozhikode. Kozhikode is located on the coast of Kerala and is home to Calicut Airport. The airport's uniqueness lies in its tabletop runway, presenting its own set of challenges. With a single runway situated on an artificially leveled hill, the airport is encircled by steep drops on all sides. Navigating it during monsoon or at night could be risky. Adding to the complexity, Kozhikode holds the designation of a critical airfield, imposing a rule that permits only the captain to fly the plane in and out of the airport. Thankfully, the seasoned 59-year-old captain is no stranger to such airports, particularly when it comes to piloting the Boeing 737. Having flown in and out of Kozhikode several times and having landed there 36 times in the past year alone, he is well versed with its complexities. With a total of 10,000 flying hours under his belt, a significant 4,600 have been spent piloting the Boeing 737. Assisting him is the 32-year-old first officer with about 2,000 hours of flying experience, mostly on the Boeing 737. Earlier on that day, the captain got some unwelcome news. Air India Express changed its schedule suddenly. The government needed an extra flight from Kozhikode to Doha the next morning, and there was no one else available to do it. There are 27 Air India pilots based in Kozhikode, but most of them are first officers. Only the captain of Flight 1344 is qualified for this task. It means if Flight 1344 is delayed by more than 5 minutes, the flight from Kozhikode next day would also be delayed. Adding to the challenge, they experienced a 30-minute delay at the gate in Dubai. This pushed the captain to make up for the lost time during the journey. Keeping this in mind, the Air India Express departed from Dubai with 184 passengers and 6 crew members. In Kerala, the monsoon is in full swing. Pilots of Air India Express had to go through special training and follow special procedures during this time. The captain is not worried though. He had been trained for this and had flown through the monsoon many times before. As they approached Kozhikode, the weather reports show a strong westward wind. So, the pilots decided to land on runway 28 from the east. This way, they would have the headwind in their favor while landing. Pilots often prefer landing into the wind because headwind helps to reduce the ground speed of the aircraft during landing. The air traffic controller cleared the aircraft to land on runway 28. The visibility is 2000 meters and getting lower to 1500 meters, which is close to the minimum needed for a safe landing. There is a light rain and the runway is a bit wet, but the crew is ready to manage the situation. As Flight 1344 descends into the cloud over Kozhikode, the captain and the first officer talked about the Vipers. This talk was recorded in the cockpit.
You just check that this works? Yeah. Remember, put it on high. High? Yeah, high speed.
Without any great difficulty, the pilots aligned their aircraft with the runway using signals from the instrument landing system. This aids them in achieving precise and accurate landings. The approach seems to be going according to the plan, but when the first officer turns on the windshield wiper, the wiper on the captain's side doesn't work.
What has happened to it? Oh shit, wiper is gone. Shit. What a day for the wiper to go.
But no one brings up the point that windshield wipers are a mandatory item under the special monsoon protocol. Moments later, the captain tells the first officer to put all the lights on for landing. Perhaps due to the inoperative wiper, the runway is no longer visible through the swirling clouds and rain.
1,000. Approaching minimums. Minimums.
The plane has reached the minimums and it cannot descend further without gaining a clear view of the runway. So they decided to go around and put the plane into a climb. The crew thinks they'll go around and try landing on runway 28 again. But they don't know something different is waiting for them. Another Air India plane departing from Kozhikode announces its plan to take off from runway 10, which is the same runway but in the opposite direction. If Flight 1344 tries to land on runway 28, the two planes will be flying directly towards each other. To solve this problem, the air traffic controller asks Flight 1344 if they are okay to land on runway 10, allowing them to come in after the departing plane. After checking the wind and visibility, the captain decides to go for it. This means the wind will be blowing from behind the plane. Flight 1344 is coming into land with a tailwind. But the wind isn't very strong, not really dangerous. But landing with a tailwind makes the plane move faster over the ground. This means it demands more runway space to land. Even though the tailwind is just 5 knots, the pilot should be careful about landing this way, especially on a wet runway with steep drops on all sides of the airport. But there is no discussion about the risk they are about to take. If the tailwind is really just 5 knots, Flight 1344 will have a very different ending. The problem is that the actual wind on the ground is at least 15 knots. Sometimes even stronger at certain altitudes. The device measuring the wind at the airport is in an unusual spot, so it gives wrong readings. It often doesn't work right. Nevertheless, the air traffic controllers found themselves with no alternative but to convey whatever data was generated by this flawed instrument. This problematic setup was only uncovered during a later investigation. The local weather authorities had already issued 2 aerodrome weather warnings for Kozhikode. These warnings indicated the presence of thunderstorm and a 17 knots wind. Unfortunately, the airport meteorologist responsible for interpreting and communicating these crucial messages to the controller had left the tower against the protocol. So, the air traffic controller remains unaware about these critical weather updates. As Flight 1344 attempts its second approach to Calicut Airport, a fierce turbulence shakes the plane while battling a strong 38-knot tailwind. Just above 2,500 feet, the captain instructs the first officer to turn the windshield wipers back on. Unfortunately, the captain's side wiper only functions at a very slow speed, even when set to high. The pilots once again align with the runway using the localizer and glide slope signals. The view through the windscreens remains obstructed, but the crew continued on with the approach. The actual wind speed at this altitude is 26 knots, featuring a 22 knots tailwind and a 13 knots crosswind component, which forces the plane to crab sharply to the right during its descent. These winds exceed the safe limits for landing, yet the pilots remain unaware, pressing forward into the storm without hesitation. The captain disengages the autopilot and takes control for a manual landing. But the captain fails to disconnect the autothrottle, meaning that the computers are still controlling the aircraft's engine thrust, which goes against the standard operating procedure. The crew spots the runway and decides to land. At this point, the captain is dealing with several visual illusions. The low visibility and only runway lights in sight have triggered a visual illusion known as the black hole effect. This makes the runway seem much closer than it really is. Adding to the trouble, the malfunctioning wiper is making it hard to see those runway lights through the water-covered windshield. So, the captain is getting the feeling that the plane is higher than it really is, causing him to initiate a dangerously steep descent below the recommended glide path. The first officer is alarmed and he made a standard call-out to alert the captain. But the descent continued at a vertical speed of 1,500 feet per minute. The first officer warns again.
Rate of descent, Captain.
But this time, the captain responds.
Yeah, correcting.
However, a crucial moment arrives as the ground proximity warning system issues a glide slope warning, indicating that they are flying too low.
Glide slope.
If they keep descending at this rate, disaster is imminent. They will crash before they get to the runway. In response to the warning, the captain accelerates the engines, pulling the plane back up through the glide slope. Unfortunately, he overcorrected, and now they are flying too high. The situation is becoming increasingly dangerous, and it's clear that they shouldn't continue with this landing. But the captain has his eyes locked on the runway, and he is determined to go on with this unstable approach, despite it constitutes a gross violation of standard operating procedure. Perhaps the captain remembers the special monsoon rules. During this season, they are not allowed to attempt landing more than twice, meaning that if they can't land this time, they're supposed to divert to their alternative destination. But if they do that, the flight for the next morning is definitely going to be cancelled. In a matter of seconds, the plane crosses the runway threshold higher and faster than usual, aided by a 15-knot tailwind, setting the stage for a longer landing. But the captain's actions are about to make this challenging situation much worse. As the plane reaches 20 feet above the runway threshold, Instead of following the autothrottle's command to reduce thrust for a smoother touchdown, the captain manually increases the thrust to 83%. The sudden increase in engine thrust creates more lift, causing the plane to level off at a height of about 20 feet and preventing it from descending further. The aircraft floats down the runway and quickly consumes the intended touchdown zone. The first officer, sensing the urgency of the situation, calls out to the captain, possibly pointing to the approaching lights that mark the end of the touchdown zone.
Just check it.
However, the captain remains silent and they swiftly pass the end of the designated touchdown zone, which disappears behind them. The first officer tries again, this time sounding more anxious and worried, seeking the captain's attention and cooperation.
Captain,
The captain is losing situational awareness, likely due to the reduced visibility caused by moderate rain and slow wiper operation. Even the basic features like the lights on the touchdown zone fail to capture his attention. Suddenly, the enhanced ground proximity warning system alerts them that they are just 10 feet above the runway. It's a moment of realization for the captain as he realizes they are floating instead of firmly landing. He tries to correct the situation by reducing the thrust, but the first officer knows it's too late and the landing should be discontinued. So he urges for a go-around.
go around.
The captain ignores the warning and desperately tries to land the plane. Finally, Flight 1344 lands on the slippery runway well beyond their intended landing zone. And with the wind pushing them from behind, it only decreases their ability to stop within the available runway. With only 1400 meters to halt the plane, the odds are stacked against Flight 1344. The runway's slight downhill slope makes the task even more challenging. The captain acts decisively, deploying the thrust reversers and applying maximum braking force. It is clear within seconds that they won't be able to stop in time.
Oh shit.
Before the reverse thrust gets any effective, he retracts the thrust reversers and releases the brake, maybe thinking he can get the plane airborne again. But it's too late for that.
Shit.
Realizing it's too late, the captain reapplies the brake and thrust reversers, pushing the engine to maximum reverse thrust in an effort to stop the aircraft. The plane races beyond the runway's edge. Panic strikes the captain once more as he stows the thrust reversers back and forth in confusion. The 737 goes off the pavement, slamming into the ILS antennas and tumbles down a 30-meter-high embankment. The aircraft shatters as it strikes the ground. Sadly, both pilots have been killed instantly, along with 16 other passengers. 3 more passengers die later in the hospital. That makes a total of 21 people who don't make it. But thankfully, 169 people survived, although 76 of them are seriously injured. The crash of Flight 1344 brings back memories of a similar accident 10 years earlier. Back in 2010, an Air India Express Flight 812, also a Boeing 737, overshot the runway in Mangalore, a city in a neighboring state, leading to a devastating crash that claimed 158 lives. After 10 years, Air India Express has now lost another plane in almost the exact same way. It's like history repeating itself. What comes to everyone's mind is, how did Air India Express find itself in a similar situation, losing another plane? had they not learned lessons from the Mangalore tragedy? That's where the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau of India steps in. Listening to the cockpit voice recording left investigators shocked. They discovered that the first officer had actually called for a go-around just 1 second before touchdown. However, the captain ignored the first officer. This broke all the rules of crew resource management, which is a set of strategies that guide how pilots work together to use each other's skills and judgment effectively. Ignoring a fellow pilot's go-around call goes against all logic. When any pilot says go-around, the one flying the plane must act immediately. In this case, where the captain doesn't respond to the call, the first officer was supposed to take control and initiate the go-around himself. The captain, being nearly twice his age and having 5 times his flying hours, created a situation where the first officer hesitated to act. Taking such action is tough for any first officer, but proper crew resource management training can help balance things out. Strikingly, the same kind of situation happened in the Mangalore crash. The first officer suggested a go-around, the captain refused. So in this regard, nothing had changed even after 10 years' time. Clearly, Air India Express hadn't properly trained its pilots in the basic principles of crew resource management, which should have established a proper authority balance. After the Mangalore tragedy, the Investigation Bureau recommended measures to prevent runway overruns at tabletop airports. However, most of these recommendations were not implemented by the stakeholders, especially those pertaining to enhancing the runway end safety areas and implementing runway overrun protection system for the airport. Other factors that played a role include the crew's failure to divert to an alternative airport when the windshield wiper malfunctioned. Additionally, their second approach to runway 10 was unstable, and they shouldn't have opted to continue with the landing. In both cases, they had enough fuel on board to divert to their alternative airports, such as Cochin and Coimbatore, with suitable weather conditions. Also, the crew did not perform the required landing distance calculation. If they had performed the calculation, they might have noticed the slim margin for error and reconsidered landing on runway 10. Not doing this calculation breaks standard procedures. Boeing's Operation Performance Tool, an iPad app that could have made it easier for the pilots to do these calculations, wasn't installed on any Air India Express aircraft either. Moreover, the wind readings for runway 10 were inaccurate due to a wrongly installed wind sensor. As a result, the pilots were unaware of the real wind conditions. The meteorologist on duty also broke the protocol by leaving the control tower, failing to alert the controller about the approaching bad weather. Another potential cause of the failed landing wasn't discovered in the flight recorders, but in the captain's bag. Inside, several diabetes medications were found. Many diabetes drugs, including those the captain had taken, are banned for pilots due to their ability to cause hypoglycemia. This medical condition causes confusion, dizziness, and several other symptoms. Given his recent use of multiple medications, these symptoms may have compromised the captain's ability to manage the plane, possibly causing him to make questionable choices. In the aftermath of the investigation, numerous safety recommendations were directed towards key stakeholders. While a convergence of factors contributed to the tragic accident, the insights gained from this unfortunate event must be earnestly embraced by the aviation industry. Let's hope history never repeats itself and lessons are truly learned.